The month of June has been punted as Pride Month worldwide, and issues affecting the LGBTIQ community were highlighted during this period. Here on SA Today, we wrap it up with filmmaker and activist Bev Ditsie. Bev is the first person to address the United Nations on LGBTI issues. She's also led the activism alongside her late friend Simon and many others. But before we get to the interview, let's just remind you and show you this clip of her film Simon and I.
You will be saying that, isn't it? Isn't it? She will be saying that. I am here at the moment. She's gonna say, gay rights are human rights.
This is Simon. That's me. I really loved him. Sometimes I hated him. He changed my life.
Shame, you know, Philip died.
Really? When?
I think 2 years ago or something.
That's a lot of people.
Ooh, and you know, one day I'm not gonna go to the march because of all these people that have gone and...
This is the last time Simon and I were together.
We met him.
Yeah, he was one of the big organizers.
He died of AIDS complications a week later.
It was interesting how he pulled out all these mags and books and, you know, put on the video, said, hey, remember all this? Even for me, it felt like, oh, wow, you know, because these are some of the things I tried to forget.
All right, so we have her in studio this afternoon to talk to us about how things are looking really for the LGBTIQ communities here in South Africa. Good afternoon to you, Bito. Thank you so much for coming through.
Good afternoon, Palesa Bito.
And I suppose, firstly, congratulations on your honorary doctorate from the US University.
Thank you very much.
This, of course, in recognition for your contribution to human rights.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, how does it make you feel? Did you expect it?
I'm still getting used to it. It's still something whenever somebody says Dr. Ditsie, I think I double take and then I go, oh yeah, that's me.
Of course, that's how I am supposed to address you.
It will take a while.
It really did.
Yeah.
But what does it say? I mean, this recognition coming from the United States instead of, you know, here at home. They usually say charity begins at home. And how does this make you feel?
You know, I think it's expected here at home that some people that deserve accolades don't get them. I'm not the only one. Whether it's from a filmmaking space or from an activist space, there's a thing that's going on where we discard our own a lot. And it's one of the things I complain about, especially in the media space, especially in the arts space, even in the activism space, where people who actually need to be recognized don't get recognized. So it's never really been a surprise that I wasn't recognized here at home. As painful as it is, you just continue to do what you do. There are many of us. We just continue to do what we have to do. And
you've done a lot, really, from one thing back to the first Pride March back in 1990. How are things looking from that particular year to where we are now in 2019?
You know, I think we need to be able to acknowledge the fact that we are very lucky in South Africa, that we do have laws, we have a Bill of Rights, we have a constitution that is very clear in its intention to make sure that we are protected from all kinds of abuses and discrimination. But unfortunately on the ground things are not much different. Yes, there's a lot more visibility of queer people because we are out here actually just living our lives and taking the rights that are meant to be there for us. But in actual fact, it is now reported, I think, that something like 80% of the attacks that happen, unless they lead to murder itself, don't get reported. Because we know that even the police, even the justice system does not necessarily do anything to protect these rights or to advance the rights of queer people. And so it is just easier sometimes to find a way to heal rather than to report incidences of violence. But it does not mean that violence has abated. It does not mean that discrimination has stopped. We've got a long way to go, even though we still actually have the laws and the protections that are meant to be there for us.
I wanted to to ask you that question, to say post apartheid South Africa. So you're basically saying that the laws are there on a piece of paper, they've been implemented, but the treatment that you get from your fellow citizens is what pains the LGBTI community.
It's very interesting because you've got some countries around the world where there are no laws that actually have any protection that mention sexual orientation or gender identity or gender expression in any way whatsoever, and yet there's some kind of social cohesion on the ground that makes it a little easier for people to live their lives a little bit more openly, a little freer. And yet we live in a country where also we must not forget that we have economic differences, we have poverty, you're dealing with so many different issues where we are not just a community of people that are facing one type of discrimination. People talk of intersectionality all the time. There are many of us who still live in the same townships, who are affected by the retrenchments, who are affected by the unemployment, we are all affected by the same things. Added on top of that, you're talking about then discrimination on top of that on the basis of sexual orientation, or even gender identity and gender expression. And so the way that things are going now is that we are all in the same boat with just a little bit of extra, and sometimes more than a little bit of extra discrimination added on top. And so we've got a long way to go.
Yeah. But what needs to happen? I mean, there are cultural constraints, I suppose, to all of this, because I remember one hashtag that trended, was it late last year, the hashtag Inkonzwestabani on Twitter that trended, where people were coming out to tell their horrific stories. Some have even been disowned by their own parents. So it certainly shows what and how culture, comes into play in all the challenges that the community faces.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting for me, because culture and tradition play a role in a lot of positive things in our country, but at the same time, there's a lot of negativity. And I don't think that we can divorce patriarchy from how things, I mean, discrimination against women, the abuse of women is just non-stop. We can put it all in that same bracket. The abuse of women in this country is at a critical stage and it is completely ignored. It is almost as though, it's not news, there's nothing to it. And we cannot tackle the homophobia and the discrimination against queer people without actually dealing with all the discrimination that comes under the umbrella of patriarchy. And unfortunately, tradition and culture perpetuates a lot of violence and a lot of discrimination against anybody that is deemed unmasculine, unmanly, or not fitting the status quo and not fulfilling the roles that are meant to be mandated for each and every one of us, no matter whether we fit into those boxes or not. So it is unfortunate that we have both the good and we have this on that one hand, because a lot of us believe in tradition, in culture. A lot of us, we are very proud of our cultures. Some of us are very religious, some of us are very spiritual. And yet at the same time, these are things that are taken away from us, and we're told that you do not belong because of your sexual orientation, and that is a lot to deal with.
And I suppose that's why some people still find it very difficult to come out.
Yes, and I mean, people don't come out for very many reasons, and it is sad. But also, some of us ask, why is there such a need now, especially, to be coming out? Because people don't necessarily walk around saying I'm heterosexual. Unless obviously the coming out has to do with finding safety, unless the coming out has to do with when people are being, not just discriminated against, but sometimes secrecy creates even further victimization. And so coming out alleviates that. But that's really all there is to it. We don't need to be I think that for me, when I was coming out, and when I had to declare my sexual orientation, had a lot to do with the fact that I did not have a community. I did not have anybody else that I knew that looked like me. And so finding the word gay, finding the word lesbian meant that there were people like me. And therefore, I could identify, and I was no longer alone. We are not really there anymore. We do have community, we do have people. And as a result, sometimes coming out can be dangerous, especially in areas where people are likely to attack you for using the words.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time when you're just yourself and you're not using the words, it's a bit of a conundrum. But I'm finding out a lot of the time that somebody says, oh, I came out to my parents and they threw me out. The thing is, if you're living at home under your parents' roof and you know how they feel and think, sometimes it might not be a good idea.
I remember, I think it was during the festive season, one guy posted on Facebook that it's time to go home now for Christmas holidays. So I'm going to have to go back to who my parents know me as. I can't be gay at home. I only do it here in Johannesburg. So those are some of the challenges that the LGBTI community go through. Now, Botswana decriminalizing homosexuality. You have Kenya on the other hand, of course, doing exactly the opposite. So there's still a long way, I suppose, for our neighbors and the rest of the other African countries.
I think that we just need to really demystify and destigmatize who we are. Because really, honestly, we are regular people like everybody else, but there's a lot of misinformation that has gone out, particularly in our East African neighbors in particular. It is quite scary, the kind of misinformation that is out there about who we are. We've been called all sorts of things, devil. I mean, it's not just the immoral and all those words. It is all the other things that are added that make you wonder, who do you think queer people are? And they say, we don't like what you do. Yo, what do we do? I wake up, I brush my teeth, I go to work, I come home, I eat, I take care of my family.
Like everyone else.
Like everybody else. So, you know, even when I started appearing and making a lot of media type appearances, my aim was, okay, show me what it is that I do that is different to you, except for the fact that I love my partner who happens to be a non-binary human.
Sure, all right.
You know,
I wish we had more time, but I'm afraid we have to leave it at this. Bev, thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you very much for having me.
There you have it, Bev. Should I say Dr. Bev Ditsie? There you have it.
Thank you so much.
LGBTIQ activist, of course, and filmmaker, as we wrap up Pride Month here on SA Today.